All right. So this is my first live stream in a while, and this is my first time using OBS. So I'm noticing a very, very large delay. Seems to be about 10 seconds or more on this. So there's going to be not going to be interacting with a live chat quite as quickly as I might like. Just letting you know. All right, so I'm going to start. I'm going to put up the phone number here. Just a moment. Let me get that set up. Let me do this as a pop out. Pop out. There we go. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. All right. Okay, I'm going to pull up some notes here. It's a little bit easier on me. All right. Okay. So, welcome. Let's get started here. Let's see how this is going. I'm looking for... Wow, this is going to take a little bit of work to get set up properly. There we go. Interesting. Getting some odd warnings from YouTube. Hopefully nothing that's going to cause any real issues. Yeah, do that. There we go. Okay. And we'll do this real quick. All right. So, let's see. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on with the state of things as it stands. So let's see. Coronavirus. Where are we at? Let's actually look this up. So. Alright. So, let's see. Let's see what the current stats are. It's not going to be pretty. We are currently worldwide at 28 million cases. That is kind of unbelievable. Alright. So, had not realized where we were. We are currently at about 6.5 million cases, 649,000 cases. The deaths have almost reached 200,000. Now, I'm going to say this. That's when I was kind of when I started looking at doing these, was when we hit that 100,000 point, when I realized that we were hitting 100,000 and nothing was slowing down, nothing was changing, that we were likely to continue on the path that we were on. So let's see where we are at in the last Let's see, can I find the numbers for the last 48 hours? I'm sure they're in here somewhere. Alright, let's see if anybody's shown up in the chat yet. Nope, nobody in the chat. Oh, you know what I'm going to do in the chat I have yet to do? Is I'm going to throw in the phone number so you guys can actually call in, because this is a call-in show. Or at least theoretically, if anybody ever wants to show up and, do some calling in. Hint, hint. Alright, let's see here. Okay, here we go. Okay, so what I'm posting here is an actual real phone number. That's actually a Google Voice phone number, but close enough. And it's one where you can contact me. We're going to do this old-fashioned style. You're just going to call me on my phone here. I'm going to be talking to you on the phone. The reason being is that with the delay and everything else going on, it's going to be far better to do it this kind of old-fashioned way rather than trying to link things through. But so while I am waiting to see if anybody would like to show up and possibly hang out, talk tonight, let's talk a little bit about coronavirus. And so one of the things that one of the reasons why that number of nearly 200,000 is so strong for me is that I know that number's wrong. That number's actually probably very low in reality. So it's because there's so many people, we don't even know what we're dealing with when it comes to grief. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my friend Keith Pace for a minute. I talk about him here and there during these streams. He's been gone for over a month now. And Keith died, so Keith was in his 50s. I don't think he'd hit his 60s yet. And he was actually, relatively healthy. He had been, he lived on a boat for a good long while. He lived on a boat most of the time that I knew him. He'd actually just moved out to a nice little place out over, I want to say, like, sort of Orange Park kind of area. Nice little area. And so he was happy there. He had a new girlfriend, and not even new at that point in time. They'd been together for quite a while, and they'd moved out there together. And he was, of course. Now, this is the thing: is that we are in a situation where work is a necessity right now, because we are not. You're not getting unemployment the way that you should, probably. There's several problems. So, and I don't exactly know what was going on with Keith. Maybe he just needed to be back in the swing of things. But Keith was one of my co-workers as a ghost tour guide. And it's while he was doing a ghost tour in a 3-story building where we would walk up and down the stairs as part of the regular tour. And I think because of the way the tour had been altered, we were doing that a little bit more. Where he passed out. He fell over, passed out during the tour. And he was not really, nobody was really sure what had happened, and so the paramedics came, and I believe it was their recommendation that he go to the hospital. I do not actually know. I know that Keith was very concerned about what's going on with coronavirus, so he ended up going home instead. Now, it was the next day where he died at home. So the thing about this is that I was not sure if this really counted as a coronavirus death or not. But I think it does. Something that is not really that well documented yet and seems to be more apparent in children rather than older adults, but is something that does seem to be happening. Are we still connected? Okay, we do. All right. But one thing that does still seem to be happening is that there, even if you are asymptomatic, and Keith was going out, and he was still living his life, and if he had an asymptomatic case of coronavirus, there is some indications that even if you have an asymptomatic case, that you can have heart damage. This is mostly showing up in kids. I have forgotten what the particular what the disorder is, or what the problem that the children are having, but it's basically a multi-symptom kind of failure thing that's going on with kids right now if they have coronavirus, and part of that is heart damage. And there's a large part of me that is increasingly of the opinion that Keith is not one of those obvious deaths, but he's one of the ones who very likely coronavirus complications, if not one way, at least two ways, I would think. So I still miss Keith a lot. Good guy, I went and I picked up a Crucible metal casting set not so long ago, actually, since he's passed, and it was the last thing that I talked to him about was doing some metal casting, and so I'll have to figure out how to do it without him. I would have liked to have learned from him, and that's why I'm doing some of this, is because it is important that we have a chance to talk about that, to say, to remember the people who we've lost to all of this, So let's talk a little bit about, but it's not just that. I mean, there's other types of grief, because there is grief of losing what we have going on in our lives, the changes that have happened, and that might kind of seem like it's like, oh, I'm feeling grief about not being able to go out, but no, it's a lot more than that. So one of the biggest problems with dealing with coronavirus is sort of this thing right here. It's the camera, or for me right now, but most of the time it's the screen. And it's the fact that it's so hard to find a moment's peace away from it. We almost welcome news of other disasters, because let's be honest, it's better than thinking about the same thing all the time. And that's where we're at right now. I mean, the things, so there's the horrible phrase, the phrase that I think we all have come to hate, the new normal. But I think that can be a good thing. I think that can mean something good if we let it. I think one of the things that can mean is this, is that life has continued. It feels like life is on hold, and certain parts of life are on hold. There are a lot of things I would like to be going out and doing. There's a lot of people I would like to go see. There's some traveling I'd like to go do. I mean, nothing major, but just, and I'd like to go and just sit with my wife in a nice restaurant for a while and not worry. So that's some things that we're going to have to be on hold for a little bit. But that's okay, because see, this is the thing. We're all going through this together. It's we're all in this together thing, but the good thing about that is that this is like sort of like a life change. So think about what it was like when you finally got a car for the first time, when you finally had a driver's license. Think about how much that changed your life. You were able to go out and do so many more things. And maybe you've had a time period where the car has been broken, or whatever. I mean, actually, I'm experiencing that right now. I have a flat tire on my truck. I had to go take the cab in. And it's interesting because you do very much realize that it is a tremendous change. And this is very different, without question. But at the same time, adapting to it is very similar. So we can't go out to the same places, so I need to wear a mask everywhere that I go. So I need to be responsible about the people that I see and the contacts that I have. Okay, that's really not any worse than just changing your living situation. I mean, think about it. If you moved from someplace where, you felt comfortable and safe, but you had this job opportunity at someplace where you're going to make a tremendous amount of money, but the only places you could live in that area, literally the only places available, were ones where you're like, I do not feel safe and comfortable here. You would have to change so many things about the way you lived. This is that. It's I also think of it this way too. I'm not old yet. I joke that I am. Right? Been this way for a while though. So, but I'm not old yet. And when I get old though, life's going to change again. I'm going to get old enough that I'm not going to be able to drive anymore. That's not a pleasant thing to think about, certainly. And it's not the most pleasant comparison. But the truth is that that's the kind of change that doesn't have to destroy you. It really is hard for a lot of people, and my goodness, with the amount of freedoms that are taken away from the elderly, yeah. But there's some people who manage to adapt to it well. That's kind of where we're at. Look, even if you're not adapting to it well, that's fine. We're not supposed to. What we're supposed to do is we're supposed to be able to figure out a way to get through this. We're supposed to be able to spend enough time just kind of taking care of each other and taking care of the things that are important, that we don't get lost and forget why we're trying to stay safe. I feel like that's something that's happened. I mean, maybe I'm being a little bit judgmental here, but honestly, it seems like an awful lot of these, I'm not going to wear a mask people and that kind of thing, don't have a whole lot to lose in their lives. They, some of them got huge families and that kind of thing, sure, but there's also just so many people where it's just, they've got no one to care about, no one to care about them. So why should they wear a mask? I guess what I'm trying to say is that as much as I get angry, oh yeah, I get mad. I get mad at these people a lot. I want this to be over. I feel like if we'd been wearing masks by now, it would mostly be over, if not completely. But it's just so hard to forget, or so hard to remember, excuse me, that if you've got nothing that you're around you, then it's easy to lose that. It's easy to lose focus. It's easy to forget why you're trying. So spend some time, get on social media, whatever it is for you. Not preferably not just regular social media. Just get on a chat app, and get a hold of some people that you haven't talked to in a while. I mean, hey, my friend Dan. Well, talked to him a couple nights ago. Talked to him a couple nights ago because he's in Southern Oregon, which was on fire 3 nights ago. Yeah, I was a slow poke on that one. But before that, I mean, you just catch up with the people. There's time to do that right now. I mean, hopefully you've got time to do it. I've got less time than others. So, nobody really viewing, nobody really in the chat yet. Doesn't seem to be a whole lot of people here. So, we're going to kind of shift gears a little bit here. One of the things that I want to talk about is building your support network, because this is the thing which is important no matter what's going on in the world and no matter where you are in life. But I think it's worthwhile, and it's something which I'm doing right now. And I go through my little list of people that I text, and I've got them, I've got them, I've got them, I've got them, and what it is that, a lot of these people are people that I've known for a long time. I've got a friend here in Georgia. I've got a friend here in my friend in Oregon. I've got a lot, of course, local friends and that kind of thing. But with the coronavirus going on, we're just not seeing each other. So even if it's somebody where I've completely stuck my foot in my mouth, then I don't care. I don't care right now. It's important to go and talk to people. It's important to get through and say, hello. So, on that note, it's hard to have all the energy for everyone sometimes. And it's okay if you don't. But spend the time when you can. Don't worry that it's been too long or that it hasn't been. It's, what, right now it's extraordinary circumstances. Call that friend of yours who you haven't seen since high school. So, yes, absolutely correct. So even if you haven't seen these people since high school, by the way, I'm not responding to the chats right now because I do not know how long the delay is, and if I respond to the chats, I could be responding to the chats a good minute after you've typed something in. So I appreciate your comments, though. I will be responding to some of the larger things here, but spend some time building that support network. Go through your old contacts. Go through and talk to the people who you haven't talked to in a while. I'm talking to you, Celeste, yeah, or anyone else who's here. Go ahead and find those people, and even if it's somebody who, there's kind of a burnt bridge, or, things were, as I say, a little funky, it doesn't matter right now. Call that weird girl from Arizona or whatever, and touch base with them. It's also not a bad time to forgive some people. I'm looking through my list here, and I'm like, there's some folks who I wouldn't mind talking to again, even though they might owe me something, or maybe we just need to say, hey, you know what, it's been long enough, are we still mad about it? No? Alright, we're done being mad about it. And for me, I'm actually going to do some of this. I haven't done as much of this as I should. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go on Facebook, which I rarely do, and I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to find some of those people who I've been reading their posts, some of my friends from high school that I've been reading their posts forever, and they occasionally will comment on mine, but beyond that, I probably haven't talked to them in, a decade or more. So, talk to those people. Now, for some of you folks, of course, it may not have been that long since you've been in high school. It's been a little while since I was in high school. You can probably guess that. But it's important to be able to go ahead at this moment and kind of see that line, because And what I mean by that line is that line that connects who you once were, who I was in high school, to the person you were through, if you went to college or, your first jobs, to where you are today. Because there's a couple things. Even if that line is not very long for you, even if you're in your early 20s and, you're still in college, or, you know, if you're in your early 20s, it's not hard. It's easier to see that line. You can probably even see that line all the way back to being a kid. I can sort of still see that too. And it's one of those things where that line is part of who you are. It is part of your ego, your understanding of your identity. And if you follow that line to now, or at least to the time all the way up before coronavirus, then you can see that the time since coronavirus just is another part of that. It's another chapter. So life is going to go on here. It's hard to remember that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull up a couple things from the from Reddit here, because there's actually some interesting things that people have been talking about. Okay. Alright, so... Oh, I got downvoted. I had 5 votes, now I only have 3. Oh no. Alright, so this is the one that I was looking at earlier. So this is someone who's going to a family gathering after a grandmother has passed. This is about 20 hours old at this point. And as it turns out, I am the only person who's commented to this person. And I actually commented after 13 hours. And I commented because, well, nobody else had. So I'm not going to read their whole... I'm not going to read it for... I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically their grandmother passed. They're going to Texas for to help, to just sort of help the grandfather deal with everything. They don't know if there's going to be a service. They're planning on staying in an Airbnb. Now, this person's group has been very cautious up to this point, and they're just worried about certain logistics. First of all, Texas. Okay, it's Texas. I don't know where this person is traveling from. I didn't dig through their post history to figure this stuff out. But I mean, the truth is, Texas is probably no better than Florida, and I'm in Florida right now, and that's no fun. Another thing they're concerned about is public bathrooms along the way, and the plume that comes up when you flush the toilet. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But it's one of those things which is, again, I mean, some people might think it's silly, but it is a concern, depending on your situation. And they're asking if anybody's rented an Airbnb during this time. So this is sort of, I'm going to read some of this verbatim. This is my response here. So first of all, it is easy to forget all the hard work that you've put into the how important all the hard work you put in quarantine really is, okay? Because quarantining is very important. It's hard, but it's very important. Now, the thing is, just because you're venturing out, you don't need to destroy that feeling of you've lost all your hard work. So, when you are in a situation where you can quarantine, where you can choose your circumstances, and I'm kind of in that situation now, even though I'm in a work situation. I have 12 feet of distance from people, including coworkers at almost all times. I wear a mask, so I'm fairly comfortable. But Nevertheless, that's a situation where I've been able to say, okay, this is what makes me comfortable, and I have some degree of control over it. When you are in a situation like this person is, where they have to go out and they have to be out in the world, there's a certain amount of control that you have to give up. So it's not a bad thing. It's just that there's a certain level of, how to put it, we live in our bubbles, right? We've got our little quarantine bubbles, and there's certain sort of fictions that we keep inside the quarantine bubble. So we're able to keep harder rules. So, for example, inside the quarantine bubble, you can tell people, these are my rules for seeing you. Outside of it, then you have to accept what's going on. So, when it comes to that, the first thing is, remember that just because this is some exposure, it is not a situation where going out and having one exposure destroys all your hard work. When you can control your circumstances, it's easy to think of it as everything out there is infected. It's all infected, every surface, it's all got coronavirus on it everywhere. And honestly, that's the way that I think a lot of the time. It is a useful tool to keep me safe. It keeps me from doing this stuff and touching my face when I'm out in public and doing other dumb stuff and so on and so forth. I still do some dumb stuff. I forget my mask far often more than I should, but nevertheless, I assume that everything is infected. Now, if you're in a circumstance where you have to go out into the world, you have to go to help grandfather because grandmother died, and it's states away, you don't have that luxury. You have to think about it realistically. So realistically, it's like this. There is only a small amount of risk at any one of these interactions. Any one interaction that you have, very, very low risk. You go out and you have a whole bunch of really low risk interactions, you've got yourself a high risk, right? You have a very low number of low risk interactions, you still have a pretty low risk. So remember that, okay? It sounds like, so people are being smart. If you're being smart, remember, just be smart in the circumstances where you have to go out and do things, and you're not losing all of the work that you've put in. So now, just briefly, I want to talk about the toilet plume thing. So I have not seen recent information on this. I do know that there was a report that came out, I want to say a couple months ago now, maybe a little bit longer, and basically it was about, toilet plumes can cause this. Now, I'm going to point out, if it is the same thing that I read and there is no more additional data, and I do not know if this is true, but the thing that I read was not specifically about coronavirus. That's the first thing. It was about, I believe, a flu, or I'm not even sure if it was anything about any specific germ, but it was about how these things can be sprayed everywhere. Okay, so they took a look at that, and some scientists took a look at that, and this is, I forget what it is. It's where they go back and they dig through old data and old journals and go, oh, well, we take this information from this and this information from this, and then we can create a new report from these two, that are put together. And so they took a report on coronavirus and a report on toilet plumes and said coronavirus toilet plumes. Point is, they've never tested coronavirus toilet plumes. Now, I'm not saying that it isn't a thing. I'm just saying that on some level, it's still sort of speculation. So, but it is certainly enough to cause concern. So, I remember, at least when I was, now this was actually not a report that I read, this was a video from, I don't know, a few years ago now, where they actually had, they had a guy who poured in like ultraviolet dye inside a toilet and then flushed the toilet, and they did a whole thing where they could see the plume with an ultraviolet light and all that kind of thing. And really, my impression from that was the flush and run technique actually works. Okay, it's not perfect, it's not great, but I was looking at that and I'm like, there is time. There is time. You're at the door, you go, there's time. Okay. The other thing, and honestly, if that's your problem, get yourself a gripper stick. Okay. One of the things with a little, grip, I'm a T-Rex. I need longer arms, gripper things. Or, you could, or I've just seen people just literally take a dowel or a stick and put some rubber bands around the end of it so it'll like hold on to things better. Use that. So, if that's a concern. And the thing is that as silly as all of this sounds, if you got to take your own health, you got to take your health into your own hands, then that's what you got to do. Now, so kind of circling back around to this person who's posting about going to Texas to help out their grandfather. So I'm going to read a little bit more of this. So it's Texas. If it's anything like Florida, it will likely be scary. So not only will some people be hard-headed, some may be trying to intentionally violate your space. So what I often do is I tell them that I have extra reason to be cautious. Up until very recently, I had a family member in my sort of extended bubble who was in need of surgery. And the hospitals are testing everyone, all incoming patients for COVID. Anyone who tests positive, you don't get surgery at that point. You got to wait till you get better. It's like 2 weeks. And admittedly, what she has is not necessarily life-threatening. 2 weeks, 2 more weeks would certainly be a nightmare for her. Fortunately, she's had the surgery. She's better now, but still, that was definitely a thing. And so, hey, stay away from me. I have a reason why I have to be extra cautious. Another thing is that most bubbles have got somebody who can legitimately claim an existing condition, which or complicating condition, which would make it worse. There's many people who can say that they're immunocompromised in any number of ways. So there's a lot of ways that you can probably say, hold on, back up. I need you to give me a little bit more space because there is, a legit medical problem here. The way that I put it here in this post is, I don't know if anything like this applies to your situation, but I find it useful to avoid conversations with stupid, that's with a capital S. If I say, real or not, someone I love needs to be able to check into the hospital, and the last thing I want is to give the hospital a reason to keep them out. And, that's one where you're not even stating definitively that they are an idiot for not believing in coronavirus. You're not telling them the kind of damage that they are doing. You're just letting it be. Sometimes that's hard for me. Sometimes that's really hard for me because I feel like sometimes we're in the situation we are now because too many good people have just been like, I don't have the energy to deal with that. But right now, that's kind of where I'm at. And honestly, I recommend that for most people because fighting each other is not where we need to be putting our energy. We need to be putting our energy into taking care of each other. And the people who will accept our help are the ones whose help we should be accepting, or ones whose help we should be accepting, and the people we should be trying to help and trying to spend time with. So lastly, this is the metaphor that I have for going out right now. It's not the perfect one, but if you're being cautious, you should be fine. Choose your risk carefully. It's not all or nothing. And remember, taking some necessary risk does not invalidate all the quarantine you've already been doing. It's sort of like jaywalking. Jaywalking is dangerous. Some places it's much more dangerous than others. You can also run blindly into the street, or you can wait. You can carefully choose when and where to cross. It's not without risk, but if you're careful, you won't get hit by a car. So, of course, the place where this particular analogy falls apart is that when you're crossing the street and you get hit by a car, you know it right away. If you go out and you catch coronavirus, you don't know right away, and you don't know which time it was when you went out or were crossing the street, if we're still using the analogy, when you got hit by the car. So, Not a perfect analogy, but the point is, spend some time thinking about your risk, being careful with it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look over some of these other ones out here. So, life won't be back to normal for at least another year. Dr. Fauci said earlier that most of the public won't be able to get vaccinated until fall 2021. Fauci also had other reasonable things to say, like, we probably shouldn't be having theaters, live theater for a year, various other things. So it's going to be a while. This person right here is in college and is looking forward, and this is the problem, This is a moment in so many people's lives that isn't coming back. So what you do is you make it the very best version of that moment that you can right now. Graduations, they kind of suck right now. We're not really talking graduation time yet, but this person is. This person also is, I guess, in dance and won't be able to go and perform in theater. But here's the thing: a lot of these things are on hold. I'm gonna say things I probably shouldn't be saying right now for a minute. But so, I work in the tourism industry right now, about 9 hours a day, and my job is not essential. I'm teaching some kids some important stuff right now who are being homeschooled, and that's nice. But 98% of my job is just entertainment. It's historical, educational, it's edutainment, maybe. But there is nothing critical. There is nothing essential about what I am doing. Now, admittedly, the place where I work is much more open. And when I say open, I mean literally outdoors, open air. It's a place where, if there's going to be places that are open for tourism, this one is not as bad as a lot of them. So, okay. But we really shouldn't be open at all. And when I say that, I'm not saying that it's a bad business idea or anything like that. I'm saying that people need to be staying home. Okay? I'm glad you guys are, entertaining, and you're entertained by what I'm doing. But you need to stay home. And I'm so mad at you. Not you who are listening. If you're listening here, then it's very unlikely. But I am so mad at you for coming out when so many people are trying so hard to keep everyone else safe. I'm so mad at you for pretending that if you just close your eyes and go la 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 la, that it's all going to be okay. The best analogy that I read a while ago was, it's exhausting, The people who are quarantining are holding a social umbrella. We're being mocked by the people who aren't getting wet, who are insisting that it's not raining. But the reason why they're not getting wet is because we're holding the damn social umbrella for them. Okay, right. Okay, the point that I'm trying to make is this. I saw a song a little while ago when the quarantine was actually, fully locked down. When it was when the bars reopened, and it was really sweet. It was when the bars reopened, we'll say hi to our friends, we'll do this, we'll do that. Now it's insane to me because we've reopened the bars, at least here in Florida, way too soon. But it's that feeling where when we get to go out, when we see these people again, it's going to be so much. I'm I don't know where we're going, but there is part of me that is ready for that party. Oh my god. Oh my god, the day when we can, I mean, yeah, as the person as this person says, fall 2021, okay, a year away maybe, I don't know. If that's what it is, then that's what it is. But that day when we get to have that party, well, I'm going to tell you this. I'm not just going to go to the party. I get to work in tourism. I get to host some of the party. So, before coronavirus, when people would walk up, I'd be like, hey, how's it going? Where are you coming from? It was a good way to just kind of talk to people. Oh, yeah, what's that like? Oh, I've been there, Oh, I know so-and-so. Or sometimes you ask somebody, where they're from, and somebody says, oh, I'm from so-and-so, and then another guest who's right there says, oh, I've been there. And now you've got two guests talking, and they're having a great time with each other. I don't do that anymore. I'm not going to do that. Not for a good long time. Because right now, all I'm thinking about is how far away are you possibly bringing contagion from or taking it back to? Why on earth did you think that now was the right time to do some heavy traveling? I mean, I get it, okay? It's Florida. Airline tickets are cheap right now. Yeah, I say I get it, but I really don't. I said to my wife, I wish that there had been some way where we could have known that we were safe and we weren't going to catch it and we weren't going to pass on any other, because, wow, you were able to get a round trip ticket to London for less than $100, That would have been great. But it would have been selfish. So we didn't do it. But there's a lot of people out there right now who are. So I don't ask where you're coming from. But when that day comes, after I get to have that party, after we all get to have that party of life starts again, we don't have to worry anymore. You, my most scared friend, it's okay. You can come out again. When that day comes, my tour changes. When that day comes, I welcome everyone. When that day comes, I host the party. I don't just go to it. Yeah, it's a ways away. But what I'm trying to say is that when we get there, we're all going to be there. Even the people who've messed us up and made that day take so far away, we're all going to be there. So yeah, maybe you can't dance right now, but you can soon. Hopefully very soon. All right. I'm looking at how much delay there is on the stream. I have no idea what that picture of me is doing right now. It was a little while ago. All right. Oh, here's one. So this is somebody who posted 6 hours ago. Craft Lass. I like this. This is fairly positive. Historically, pandemics have been followed by a boom in the arts, especially performing. I suspect that being deprived of them makes us all want them more, and also simply take them less for granted. I have a lot of trouble believing that this time will be any different. History does tend to repeat itself. I'm hopeful. This one's been weird. We made art before we came up with agricultural civilization or written language. The arts will always find a way to survive. They have survived far worse times and have rebounded in the overabundance that existed for years. Frankly, this will be a rough patch for a while, and things will change as we reemerge, but it might end up even saving forms that have been struggling even. That's a good point, yeah. People always want what they have not been able to have more than they want what is available. In other words, yeah, that's the grass is always greener on the other side. But yeah, no, I mean, right now, I'm sure there's a lot of people who wish they could go see Hamilton, but lots of other things too. Okay, so let's see. Gonna try take a look at a couple other things here. So let's talk a little bit about one of the more serious things with all of this, and that is the fact that this has a real financial thing that's going on here. So I don't understand why I'm not drowning right now. I didn't think that my expenses for just like little stuff was that high. I've done some things to reduce my transportation costs. But I really don't understand why I'm not drowning right now. But it seems to be doing okay, and I'm glad. I'm so glad. I've had some money saved up, and it's still saved up. By the way, I don't know if this is good advice or not, but I think Bitcoin is at a spot where it's going to sit at a decent level for a minute, and not to be a person freaking out, but if things do go really sideways here in the next few months, I think anytime there's any kind of major unrest, you see the Bitcoin thing go up quite a bit. Yeah, Celeste is absolutely right. You see, just so that you know, this is how long the delay is. Yes, I agree that it has been a while since we've had the Dark Ages, and we're kind of having another round of the Dark Ages. But at the same time, coming out of the Dark Ages, we get ourselves the Renaissance. So, you know, that same cycle applies. So, so talking about finances, so the landlords are freaking out. The tenants are freaking out. The only ones who are not completely freaking out quite yet are the banks. But the only reason why they're not freaking out is because they have been bailed out so many times that they know that if something gets hosed, then they get bailed out again. So, you know, they just don't really take any of the risk, unfortunately. So, what is it? Private profits, public loss. All right. So, but let's talk about that. So, There is a lot of call for rent strike, for a strike at work. I'll be honest with you. There are a few problems with the way that it's being called for and the way that it's being encouraged. Feels a little bit irresponsible. The idea is strong, but on a certain level, it's like yelling fire in a crowded theater, or maybe another example would be one where you tell the person that the rope is tied nice and tight when it's not, and they might fall and they might not. So that's the best analogy I can give there. Oh well, I'm sitting way back. Let's see if I can get this a little bit. Not sure. Okay, good. Good. And we're back. Okay. Alright, so that's probably about a 15-20 second delay at most. Alright. So, now let's talk a little bit more about this whole strike thing. So, one has to understand how a strike can be effective. First of all, one has to understand who you're striking against, why, how. I think that's basically what this is. But who, why. I think we mostly know the why. But the who's important because not only is the who important who you're striking against, but it also lets you know who your compatriots are. Who are, I don't know, choose your word. If you're not afraid of leftist words, say comrade. If you're from the Deep South, call them a Confederate. Whatever. But a friend in the struggle. How do you know who these people are? Not that hard. So, what I would recommend is if you have, if a few different types of landlords out there. I have a private owner as a landlord. So, what I can do is I can go on the county appraiser website. Okay, most county appraisers, so wherever you are, you look up, whatever county you're in, blah, 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 county, property appraiser. Okay. They should have on their website a place where you can look up who owns what piece of land. You can also usually 99% of the time look it up the other way as well, and you can look up your landlord's name and you can see how many other pieces of land they own. All right, so once you've done that, then you kind of have an idea of who else might be your friends in this battle. So for example, you get there. Say for example, you get on that website and you go, oh, okay, so you have a whole list of addresses. Well, then it is not that hard for a few things to happen. One, you can simply go drive by those addresses and just see who lives there. A lot of the time it's pretty straightforward. You don't need to do any snooping or anything. You just knock on their door and just go, hey. You don't start off by saying, hey, I'm trying to start a rent strike. You start off by saying, hey, so are you do you rent from so and so? Is usually the best way to do it, and that's a good way of figuring out whether or not they rent from so and so, or maybe they're a family member of so and so who is being who's being allowed to use that piece of land or whatever it may be. So that is one really kind of useful spot to start, is to just kind of go ahead, knock on the doors, see who's doing what. There's a few other ways to figure it out, but that's probably just as far as two steps. Look it up online and go knock on doors. Easiest way to do it. Now, if you are good with a computer, or you've got access to a database or something like that where you can look up these addresses, figure out who lives there, get the phone numbers, you can call them, you can save yourselves several steps. Now, another thing you can do is take a look at your property management company. Now, so if you have a property management company, go ahead and look at their listings, all of their listings that they've shown for the past few years. If you can find them in the newspaper, you can find them online. If you can find old listings, make a note of all of those addresses as well. Now, again, rinse, repeat, figure out who on this list are your comrades. Now, the thing is, property management is a little bit more difficult to make a rent strike work, but you can. Another thing about property management is that a lot of the people who are renting through property management do not have very many pieces of property that they have through the property management agency. So sometimes you really don't need to be you don't need to be thinking about who the other people are who are renting at the same time, because if it's just one person who has that they only have that one piece of property, then, well, and it's the one you're renting, then you holding back your rent is a pretty serious thing in a lot of cases. It varies though. So, landlords come in all stripes. So that's kind of one of the things you need to do to think about when you're organizing a rent strike. Try and see who the people are that you actually need to be organizing with. Because yes, it certainly would be nice to have a whole block where everybody is all, got the white sheets out and they're all, rent strike, yada, yada, yada. But if those pieces are all just, 1 out of 10 properties owned by each one a different, landlord, then it's not going to do, it's not going to do any good. Every one of those tenants is going to be disposable. So I think a rent strike is a very important thing to do if it's what you have to do. Right now, if you can't pay rent, don't. But put as much money away as you can, as you feel like you can handle putting away right now, because it's not free. We're going to have to pay this, and I don't know what's going to happen. Right now, the current moratorium on evictions is going until New Year's Day, and then New Year's Day, who knows what's going to happen. Trump will still be president, even if he gets voted out in November. If he doesn't, he'll still be president, and the question is going to be, what are we going to have? What are we going to have for the people at that time? What kind of leadership is going to be going on? What kind of things is Trump going to be wanting to do? I honestly feel like if Trump loses, that the idea of all the people, of so many people going out on the street right as winter is coming, is really hitting hard. And we very likely will have a flu season along with coronavirus. That's kind of a nightmare scenario. But at the same time, it's not going to be a bad thing to kind of be aware that this may happen. Now, I'm going to tell you one other thing about all this. A mistake that I made. So, it's hard for me to talk about. I'm not going to say too much about the circumstances around it all, but I used to have a very nice house back in Oregon, and I lost that house. And, well, let's just say that I could have saved it if I had known the right things at the right time. I'm actually going to have to talk a little bit more about this later. I'm not. But so let's actually talk a little bit more about how we can actually make a rent strike work. So one of the best things to do is there's various apps. There's where you can start with. Facebook is, Messenger, and you can find the people fairly easily that way. Once you've found somebody's name, you can often find people on Facebook. You can begin to contacting them through Facebook. Once you have that, though, it might be a good idea to consider moving over to a more private chat client. There's some which are very secure, ones that are all mobile. There's ones that are part computer and part mobile. A Discord server is not a bad idea. It's one of many ways where you can go ahead and kind of coordinate. But I do think that having that available is something that I think it's just important to be able to communicate without it being recorded or watched. I'll be honest with you, I would prefer one where even the participants in the chat would not be able to capture the chat, even with a screen grab, and report, hey, this was said, so on and so forth. When it comes to this kind of organizing, one has to be very careful. So I think that's really important. Now, when it comes to other kinds of strike, work strike, this is really much more standard labor union stuff, and I'm going to say this right now. I'm of the opinion that I highly support organizing, join a union, etc. I'm not going to say that I think that a general strike, including a work strike, is something that's going to be that effective right now. I think that maybe when we reach a point in January where we're a lot more homeless, where there's a lot more crisis going on, and it's a lot easier to kind of identify the people who are going to be able to help. I think that's going to be a good time for us to really look at maybe calling a general strike, and maybe that's a time when more people can come through and we can make this happen. But right now, I'm afraid that if we try and have a general strike, then we're going to have just a whole bunch of leftists who all quit their jobs on the same day, basically. And that's not what I want to have happen. Okay, so a little bit about the coronavirus economic situation. When it comes to work, I am of the opinion that if you can get a job now, get one, because there is not a whole lot of them that are going to be available possibly in the future for a little while here. And it could get really crazy. This is the same kind of thinking that is like, maybe you might want to think about putting a bit of money in Bitcoin. Because the truth is that we don't know what the economy is going to look like when things come back. I mean, yeah, we're probably going to have a big boom, but is it going to be the kind of thing that can actually save us? Is it going to be the kind of thing that can actually make it better? Is it going to be the kind of thing where we actually have an economy after that? Now, admittedly, I'm not the type of person to worry that much about the economy. I think that most economic books do not belong in the science section. They're closer to religion. It's very esoteric beliefs without a whole lot of basis in shall we say confirmable numbers, repeatable results. But that being said, that I do want to be able to think that maybe we can come back from this, and that we can come back from this well. So, on that note, there are a fair number of jobs that can be found that are distance jobs. I found a pretty good list. Actually, I think it was in the coronavirus support subreddit here. That somebody posted a number of jobs. I think it was California, I want to say learning institution or university, something like that, that had a list of jobs that you could get online. And it's being fairly regularly updated. If you can find things like that, if you can find work, then do that now. It's I'm not sure. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I have a friend of mine who had an opportunity to maybe be a manager. I mean, don't know. Maybe they could have gotten the job, maybe not. But had an opportunity to be a manager at a place where they worked for a number of years. And, if it pays well, it could have been a good job. But then the thing occurred to me was this: it's at a very small tourist business. When I was somewhat familiar with what was going on there, it was not always running a profit. What I'm trying to say is that I'm not sure my friend should take that job, because I don't know that that job is going to exist a year from now. I don't know, if it makes it through a year from now, then it'll probably exist 2 years from now, but will it exist 3 years from now? And what I'm saying is that I think that if you can have a business right now that makes it all the way through September 2021, and a vaccine is actually available, and we actually all can go out and have fun again, then okay, good. And that business will make it through the next year just from everybody just being so happy. But the economy has changed, and the economy is changing. And I don't know whether or not that business will be something that people are still going to. I think yes. I think yes. I think tourism is one of those things which is not going to be, completely destroyed. I think that if you can make it through the time until the vaccine comes out, then I think you can make it. Because I think that once it comes out, then, again, we'll have the Renaissance. We'll have people coming out. So we'll see. All right. Other stuff. I think that's really important during all of this COVID stuff that we remember. So this is kind of going back to the thing that I was talking about earlier, of how we're finding a new normal. We're finding a new way that life is continuing, a new way that life is going on. And I think that one of the things about all of that is understanding that this is a very unique moment. There's very unique opportunities that are happening here, both, just to do things, to not do things, to talk to people, to make friends in a way that, I haven't before. If you're on a dating app, it's an opportunity to actually talk to somebody before you go meet up and smash. Because some people just aren't going to meet up and smash. But it's a time to really kind of look at how you can do things differently, how you can do things better. Because, okay, so the first thing that comes to mind, and this is another one of many horrible analogies, I could choose many better ones. But, so in the Doctor Strange film, right, he's got the one life, that life that he was so certain, and he knew where he was going, and he knew what was happening, and then the car crash happens, and his hands are destroyed, and he can't be a surgeon anymore. And I imagine that that's what's happened to a lot of us. The person who was going to dance school, and, performing arts is closed for a year now. So, yes, just to completely, sapify the analogy, yes, Doctor Strange, Stephen Strange gets in a car accident, his hands are destroyed. He couldn't be a great surgeon anymore. Instead, he had to be the magician. the Sorcerer Supreme, the one who, in the current incarnation of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is largely, at least a good portion, responsible for the events that allow the destruction of Thanos and the saving of the universe. Or he could have been a surgeon. I guess what I'm trying to say is this. This time is rough. This sucks. This is fine, right? It's the dog in the fire, okay? This is fine. But when we say this is fine, what we also mean is I'm in hell. I'm in a fire. So, I'm going to misquote Winston Churchill. When you're going through hell, keep going. It's no place to stop. So, it's really easy to just kind of lock down, right? We're in lockdown. We're locked down. But we don't need to be. Now, this is coming from someone who admittedly has chosen to live away from people, alone, and has seen the value in being able to sit down and get those things done. That's kind of only part of what we're doing right now, isn't it? We're just trying to figure out how to survive right now. Hey, I saw a great video on YouTube. Did you know that if you flip couches, you could make up to $8,000 a month? Honestly, I've heard worse ideas. So, find what your thing is right now. Find what your life should be like right now. If right now what you need to be doing is just watching Netflix, then I suppose do that. There's more than Netflix, and I don't mean Disney Plus and Hulu or YouTube. Although YouTube's not a bad place to start. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on here which is, pretty educational. You can learn a few things. So, I guess what I'm saying is, if you're feeling stuck, stop doing the things that you do when you're stuck. Watching Netflix all the time is something that you do when you're stuck. When you're not stuck, what do? Okay, well, maybe you go to work. Well, what do you do at work? You make things. You talk to people. Okay, well, I make things. I talk to people. So, I'll make things and I'll talk to people, at home. Right now, I'm talking to all of one person. I think I know who it is. Got one viewer right now. So, I don't know. I wanted to talk to people. I'm going to try this again tomorrow night. It's been over an hour now. But what I want to say to anybody who's listening to this, if you're listening to this later on, is that finding a new way of surviving right now, even if it's just, just for a year. I've got a friend, she got hired at a new job, and she's going to go move out to the West Coast and live out there and be doing her new job. And then, nope. New job says we're going to be doing it all by distance. You work from home now. And she had quit her job in the other place, and She was living in a place which was, at least at that point in time, kind of having a real problem with coronavirus going around, and so she moved in with her parents. I mean, she's got I don't know, not a great job, I guess, but I mean, it seems pretty good to me. And yeah, she's living with her parents at this point in time for the next year, right? For the next year. And that's just one of those things where you just kind of go, wow. So she's got her job. She knows what she's doing. She's got a roof over her head. She doesn't have a car. You know, she wasn't planning on living in a place where she needed a car. I mean, so many things are going to have to change. And I mean, and this is the thing, is that she's probably going to go rent a place. Maybe not. But, you know, she's thinking about renting a place so she's not staying with her parents the whole time. She's going to go get a car so she's not borrowing her parents' car. And these are things which are literally just for now. These are just for the months between now and then. And, you know, like I say, it's a pretty decent job, I think. But, you know, not made out of money. So, you know, it's the kind of thing that where, you know, it's nice that she's able to do that. But, you know, we've all got to make those kinds of changes one way or the other. We've all got to figure out a way of, you know, what am I going to be doing for the next year? Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to be doing for the next year. I'm going to be going to work 4 or 5 days a week. I'll be coming here in the evenings, and a fair number of the evenings. We'll see how many of them, but probably a lot of them. I'll be here to talk to y'all. Hopefully I get some of the technical kinks worked out. I feel like that's one reason why there isn't anybody on the stream, but we'll see. Anyway, I want to thank you for being here. It means a lot to me. Whether you're here live or you're listening to it later, yeah, it means a lot. So, I hope you have a good evening. Be well, take care, and everyone stay safe out there.